This video is a bit different than what I usually do, as I never really script anything. This is my first time attempting to write one, and what better way to do that than to compare two great figures, Siege and Earthrise Optimus Prime. How are they different? What makes one better than the other? And which one do I recommend over the other? Starting off, let's talk about the Siege version of the character. When this figure was announced at the end of 2018, I was super excited. I wanted a G1 Prime that didn't tower over everything in my collection. That, and I had no reasonable way to get my hands on the Titans Return one at the time. Eventually I got one, but it's still not as good as this one. But when I got this one, oh, it did not disappoint. The look and the feel is just perfect to the character. Articulation is solid as hell, and to this day, the accessories are very solid. The gun, I'll admit, is a little bit gappy for my taste, but, you know, that's what upgrade kits exist for. Every bit of this figure is just washed in cyber-stylized detail. The only real drawback for some people, I would say, is probably the backpack. It's a bit too kibbly for some people's taste, and that's why they're turned off of this figure more onto the Earthrise. But the kibble as a whole isn't terrible. It doesn't hamper articulation, it fits the aesthetic, and as mentioned before, the articulation's great. It's well above average for figures released at the time, and it's still a very above average figure compared to most today. Transformation is super fun to go through on the Siege. It's not baby's first transformation, but it's also not super complex. It kind of hits that sweet middle spot. Very satisfying. And what more could I say about the truck mode? It's a cyber-stylized version of an Earth cab-over. Fits the bill perfectly, and it looks like a G1 Optimus without blatantly being an Earth truck. And it just oozes who the character is, and it's just a super cool truck mode. Now onto the Earthrise. Much like Siege, when this was announced, I was super happy with it, and in hand, I was very happy with it, and I'm still happy. Don't get me wrong, but over time, issues became more noticeable. The heads are the exact same between both figures, but the paint on the Earthrise is far worse than the faceplate. I'm sure I've got it showcased somewhere. You could swap the heads, but why would you do that? You know, you either need to paint it to make it look better or swap the heads. That shouldn't have to be necessary unless you're just going to make the figure an entirely different thing. And even then, swapping the heads only makes it slightly better. As far as the legs go, they're just pulled right off of the Siege version, but they're made worse by having any transformation bits removed and replaced by some plastic chunks shoved into the back of them. They didn't even remove the weapon port on the side, so it just hangs out and it's very much obvious. And I don't know why they did that. There's also only one piece of real kibble, which bothers me because this figure is $50 and you couldn't do anything to make the front tires be a part of the figure as like a proper shield or a weapon or make it fold away better somewhere. You know, you could always take off the tires and sure, like, yeah, it's a thing you can do, but then you're just left with an ugly ass bracket and it makes the back of the figure look worse than it does with the tires. Articulation is very similar, if not better than that of Siege. Not by a whole lot. It's like I said before, Siege is above average, and so is this. And while articulation is better than that of Siege, there are some areas where it loses out, like in the arms, being a little bit worse than the Siege, but the legs are a little bit better, and it also has some opening hands, so, you know, hooray, opening hands. The accessories it comes with are his Ion Blaster, a Matrix of Leadership, and I guess you could say the trailer is an accessory. Yay, trailers. The Matrix is very much unnecessary. He can't even hold the Matrix properly in front of him. It has to go above him. Otherwise, he looks like he's holding it to give up to somebody else if you have to hold it in one hand. The Ion Blaster is nice. It's just way too thick in the girth of the gun. Never thought I'd say that about a gun, though. And the trailer overall is lazy. It's just a plastic box on wheels with the barest amount of effort put into it to justify the extra $20. I didn't mind the whole leaders are actual Voyagers, but with a lot of accessories. But this is the laziest of the bunch, and there's no surprise inside holding a roller or energon axe, and the trailer itself doesn't even feel dense. It feels rather flimsy and cheap. Transformation isn't complex by any means. It's not terrible and has a satisfying truck mode. It looks how an Earth mode Optimus should look, and if you want to attach the trailer to the back of it to complete the look of it, you can. I don't like the trailer too much, but it is what it is. And personally, the truck mode is an evolution for sure, but again, the biggest complaint I have about this thing is the weapon port just kind of hanging off on the side of it, and I wish they would have fix that when they designed this figure, otherwise I wouldn't have such a complaint about the legs. Which figure is better, and which one would I recommend? 100% of the time you ask me, it's going to be Siege. They both get a 9 out of 10, but I can't recommend Earthrise over Siege based off of cost alone. Like, that's really it. The Earthrise poses better in some areas, but not by a lot. While Earthrise is closer to G1, for those of you who are hardcore G1 fans, Earthrise has too many noticeable issues for it to be better. So while the Earthrise generally as a figure might seem better, the problems compared to the Siege pulls the Siege out way above the Earthrise. From what I've seen, from what I've handled, like side by side, it's no contest. Siege is just the better figure. When you factor in cost, paint, accessories into the mix, and the quality of all of that, it's just, the Siege is far better, and it's no contest to me. There really isn't much else for me to talk about. What do you think of this comparison? What do you think of both of the figures? How do you feel compared to what I do? Comment down below and let me know if you want to see more videos like this in the future, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!